We are reading from the Yoga Sutras. This is our Yoga Sutra class number 26. We are studying the second chapter and we will be continuing with aphorism number 23 and onwards. So let me read the aphorism 23. We were discussing that last time. Swa Swami Shaktyoho Swarupa Upalabdhi Hetuhu Sanyogaha. Samyoga means the junction or connection is the cause, hetuhu, of what? Of upalabdhi, the realization, swarupa of the nature of both the powers, shaktiyoho, both the powers of the experienced swa and its controller of the experience, swami. That is, the junction or samyoga is the means for the understanding of the nature of both the powers. This samyoga or connection or junction is the means for understanding the nature of both the powers, the power of the experienced or the objects and the power of its controller. Both the powers mean the power of the experienced objects and the power of their controller subject. It is an interesting and perhaps the most effective way of putting an unintelligible idea into plain and, of course, simple language. We are now in that part of the Yoga Sutras which holds the secret why this book instills so much meaning into our spiritual practices. We are going to cut the Gordian knot. Gordian knot, that is a unique loop which seems to be impossible to unfasten or undo. This knot, this tie-up, is the only one of its kind and is central to understanding our bondage and our liberation. It is the same common principle that ties this basic knot called samyoga. The aphorisms number from numbers 23 to 25 present the central theme of the book, and also they try to explore the most difficult and central problem in our spiritual practices. We need to understand, in the first place, how the bondage or the knot has come into existence and what is the process of untying it, undoing it. This is a task which is in the very heart of our spiritual undertaking. In spiritual practices, that is what we try to untie or unfasten or undo. We need some imagination, some creativity, some confidence, and the overcoming of some adversity or hurdles in order to venture into this expedition. The Mundaka Upanishad also refers to such a state of affairs in the mantra where it says, Vidyate hridaya granthi chhidyante sarva samsayaha. Vidyate hridaya granthihi. Hridaya granthi, the knots of the heart, are vidyate, destroyed, the knots, the bondage. There are three types of granthis or knots according to this Upanishad or according to the tradition. One is called Brahma Granthi, a knot creating knot. Rudra Granthi, that could be destroyed, and Vishnu Granthi, that can remain for some time in simple language. Their manifested forms are avidya, kama and karma, or ignorance, desire and action. These are three types of granthis, three types of knots they have joined together and they formed this strong loop. All these three knots are destroyed because of the rise of jnanam, knowledge. Rise of knowledge means destruction of ignorance. Like the rise of the sun means destruction of the dark night, that's all. Samyoga is called the cause. Samyoga means this connection or junction. Then what is its effect? If it is the cause, then what is its effect? What does it produce? Its effect is knowledge. Samyoga is the cause and its effect is knowledge. Or in easy language, Samyoga is the root cause because it produces knowledge. Knowledge of what or whom? The knowledge of the drishya, the seen objects, and drashta, the seer subject. Well, once again, Samyoga is the cause because it produces knowledge. Knowledge is the effect. And knowledge of what or whom? The knowledge of the objects and also of the subject. That means if there is no Samyoga or junction, there will be no question of a subject or an object, and there will be no question of knowing both of them. Samyoga facilitates these things. On the other hand, it is also known that Samyoga is actually the cause of both the wrong knowledge and the right knowledge, or both the enjoyments and liberation of the subject, the Purusha or the Jiva. Liberation means the disconnection between the Purusha and the Prakriti, between the matter and consciousness. This is the idea we discussed in the very first talk on the Yoga Sutras, if you remember that. Hence, when we are studying the Yoga Sutras, we should always consider that our analysis is firmly grounded on the basic definition of the word yoga. Then only we are studying the Yoga Sutras. The basic definition is yoga does not mean a connection, but it always means a disconnection. Else our understanding of the teachings of the Yoga Sutras will be essentially faulty or wrong from the beginning to the end. Will be essentially wrong from the beginning to the end. And we will always misunderstand the teachings. So once more, the basic definition is yoga does not mean a connection. That is the etymological meaning, dictionary meaning of the word yoga. But here in the Yoga Sutra, it does not mean a connection. It means a disconnection, and always the same. Then let us look at what Swami Vivekananda has said about it. He has given a very simple and very deep insight into it. He said that according to this aphorism, both the powers of the soul and the nature, Prakriti, become manifest when they are in conjunction. When they are in conjunction, then only their powers are manifested, otherwise not. Ignorance is the cause of this conjunction. We see every day that the cause of our pain or pleasure is always our joining ourselves with the body. When we think that we are the body, then when the body suffers, we suffer due to the connection. That is why Gaudapada in the Mandukya Upanishad says that the efforts for liberation is also proved to be mistake when one realizes one's own nature. nacha sadhaka ityesa paramarthata. There is no one who is in bondage, no one who gets liberation like that. So the whole idea is that this junction is based on a mistake, and everything that follows will be based on mistake. And once we realize that it was a mistake, then do we really get a freedom or not? Actually speaking, it was removal of the mistake. We will come to that slowly. Why do we mix up things that this junction comes into being? Why do, number one, the ekatmata? We have studied that. The ekatmata means identity between the seer and the act of seeing. The act of seeing. Or, number two, the samyogaha, junction between the seer and the seen happen. Why? Why does it happen like that? That means there are two types of mix-up. Once between the subject and the instrument, and again between the subject and the object. So why do these two types of mix-up happen? The answer is given in the next aphorism. Tasya hetuhu avidya. Avidya, ignorance, is tasya, its hetuhu, cause. Ignorance is its cause. Mistake is its cause. Before we proceed further, let us look at the sequence of what we have learned so far. I will just recollect those things which are useful here. We learned that number one, bhoga or enjoyment and suffering both, and also apavarga, freedom, have a cause. Number two, that cause is samyogaha between the Purusha and Prakriti. Number three, samyoga has its own cause, it is avidya. So, samyoga, cause of samyoga is avidya. So, avidya produces the samyoga, and that samyoga creates our bhoga and apavarga, enjoyment, suffering, and also liberation. And therefore, in the reverse order, it will be like this. Avidya produces samyoga, and samyoga produces enjoyment and freedom. I am not specifically defining enjoyment or suffering as two different things, because they are actually relative terms, and both means some degrees of both in each of them. Like suppose, cold can be a suffering in winter and an enjoyment in summer, and so on. Or both enjoyment and suffering are parts of the same scale, marked as heat and coldness, long and short, enjoyment and suffering, etc. These can be also understood as heat. Suppose, more heat and less heat. Less heat means cold. More heat and less heat. Or cold, more cold and less cold. Or long, more long or less long, means short. Long and short on the same scale. 5 inches is shorter than 12 inches. 5 centimeters is shorter than 20 centimeters. On the same scale. So one is long, another is short. Short, more short, less short. Or our enjoyment as more enjoyment and less enjoyment or suffering. As more suffering or less suffering. Like that, you can go on saying the same thing. They are all relative on the same scale. They are not two different things. But they will be measured always by the same samyoga, same scale. We will come to that slowly. The samyoga or connection between Prakriti or the objects and Purusha, the subject, is not natural, not swabhavikaha. Hence it is caused, naimitikaha. It is caused. That means it has a cause. What is the cause? Avidya or ignorance is the cause. We have learned that. So the gist is, avidya or ignorance is the cause of the samyoga or connection. The knowledge that is able to differentiate between the seer and the seen, that knowledge is called discernment, viveka jnanam. Two things got mixed up together. One is the seer and the seen. Another is the seen. Now the knowledge that can differentiate even when they are together, even when there is this samyoga, but the knowledge that can differentiate between the seer and the seen, that knowledge is called discernment or viveka jnanam. The result of viveka jnanam is when one is able to separate the seer and the seen, then the samyoga is broken. And it is as simple as that. Still, okay, let us see what we can learn from this very simple aphorism. When we gather knowledge of any object, like suppose sound, touch, color, etc., without having the viveka jnanam or without having discernment, then that knowledge is called obscuring knowledge, adarsana jnanam. In the commentary it is written like that, adarsana jnanam. It is obscuring knowledge. You are not able to differentiate between the two things which create this samyoga. Therefore, the knowledge what you get from the samyoga, that is called obscuring knowledge. And the knowledge is wrong knowledge, bhranti jnanam. That is a wrong knowledge. We are allowed to have knowledge or experience of the vishaya, the material objects. We are allowed to have. We have all rights to have that knowledge. But we should know that the knowledge or experience that we gather without using viveka, discernment, will be a compound and unseparated knowledge. We will not know that there are two in one. There are two in one experience. When we are experiencing the samyoga, we are neither experiencing the object fully nor experiencing the subject fully. We are mixing it up. So there are two in one. So it is a compound knowledge. Hence, it will be an experience of both happiness and suffering. We have already seen this psychological process in earlier discussions as to how the fulfillment of a desire begets more and more dissatisfaction. It brings satisfaction, also it brings dissatisfaction. Every enjoyment would create satisfaction at the end, and also more urge to enjoy again, that is dissatisfaction. This more urge to enjoy again is nothing but more dissatisfaction. Thus, every experience or bhoga is a compound, and that is why, by nature, it obscures right knowledge. But if we practice viveka or discernment while experiencing the compound, then the result will lead us to liberation, apavarga, liberation, with discernment only. It is freedom from the compound. Freedom from bondage means freedom from the compound. Every experience is a compound. It is a wonderful way of explaining an unexplainable idea. Let us illustrate this point by a day-to-day example. It may give us some idea in this matter of samyoga or connection. We have learned that this connection creates two contradictory experiences. One belongs to the experience of bhoga, enjoyment, both good and bad, and another creates apavarga, freedom from these enjoyments and sufferings. Suppose you are holding an object or a tool for work. Before holding it, you put on a hand glove on your hand, right or left, any hand you can put it on, or both hands, okay. Now analyze the experience. Your hand, the subject, is holding the object, suppose a cup. Now there is a two-way connection between the hand and the cup. Hand is the subject, cup is the object. Hand will hold, cup will be held. When we say the cup is held by the hand, then the cup is the subject in the sentence. Right? Again, when we say the hand is holding the object cup, then the hand is the subject. Once you look at this experience from the side of the cup, so you put the cup in front, the cup is being held. Another time from the side of the hand is holding. Okay? The cup is felt by the hand, and it is the holdability. I am using my own English. Holdability. It can be held. It allows you to hold. So holdability of the cup, that is making the cup available to the hand to be held. Otherwise, if there is no holder, you cannot hold it. It has a holder, it provides that scope. So the cup is also taking part in this experience. Two powers. The hand has the power to hold the cup, and the cup has the power that it offers itself to be held. Clear? These are the two powers which, when they mix up, they create this samyoga. Now let us go a step further. The experience is a compound, we said. It has the subject cup's experience on the one hand and the subject hand's experience on the other. We are always thinking of the hand, how it is holding, etc. But poor cup, how does it feel? Does it like to be held or not? Or does it have an opinion or not? That we never think. So, but suppose I am holding you, then the question comes. You touch me or you hold me, then both of us have our separate experiences and both of us are subjects, experiencers. But there is a samyoga. These two experiences have become one experience. The power of you and power of me when we are holding each other. The power of the cup and the power of the hand when they are holding each other. These two powers get mixed up. And that is what is called samyoga. I will be using the hand one side and the cup on the other side just to differentiate between the matter and consciousness. What is given the name samyoga or connection that makes this compound experience. Okay, to put it in another way, what is this name called samyoga that makes this compound experience possible? It is the hand glove that makes it possible, as it were. It is the hand glove. Actually, there is no connection between the hand and the cup. We forgot about the hand glove. That was the first condition. You put on the hand gloves. Or is it there that the hand is holding the cup? No, never. It is not there excepting through the hand glove. The one who does not recognize the presence of the hand glove will be subject to bhoga, the heat and cold, enjoyment and suffering, etc. And the one who would recognize the presence of an entity called the hand glove in all the experiences between the hand and the objects that it touches and holds will be liberated from the ignorance, which is called apavarga or mukti. For such a person who has got this discernment, with the knowledge of discernment, the hand glove creates the sense of safety and security. The samyoga creates a safety and security. That is the sense. They are not affected by the action and its consequences. On the other hand, the ignorance, we talked about the viveki, the person who has a knowledge of discernment, would know that that person is not really affected by this junction. On the other hand, the ignorance, avidya, is that there is a real touch between the hand and the cup. That is called avidya. We act on our object through this samyoga, not directly, because neither the object nor the subject is subject to touch, asparsha, contactless. They don't care if they exist. Why should they come together? Even if they are pressed together, still they remain two separate entities. So there will be miles of difference between them. This was called as Vastu Sarupyam in the very beginning of the Yoga Sutras. If you analyze and discern, then what you will be? You will be in the nature of the Vastu or the Atman. Swami Vivekananda said, through ignorance we have joined ourselves with a particular body and thus opened ourselves to misery. This idea of body is a simple superstition. That is a mistake. It is superstition that makes us happy or unhappy. It is superstition caused by ignorance that makes us feel heat and cold, pain and pleasure. It is our business to rise above the superstition, and the yogi shows us how we can do this. It has been demonstrated that under certain mental conditions, a man may be burned, yet he will not feel that pain. We remember the story from the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Somebody was taking a fire and a flicker up from that came and fell on Sri Ramakrishna's shoulder, and it burnt his flesh and went very deep inside. Others were able to smell the burning flesh, but Sri Ramakrishna was in samadhi, he was not aware of it. At last, we narrow down our scope of work. We discover that it is ignorance or avidya that is the cause of the mix-up between number one, the subject and the instrument, and then number two, the subject and the object. These are pairs which are unmixable or disagreeing or contradictory. Subject, object, they are contradictory. The solution therefore will be by removing this avidya, ignorance. In this conclusion, we may say that the Vedantic and the yogic views are the same. That is, removal of ignorance is the way to attain freedom from bondage or attain liberation. The Samyoga is not an intrinsic thing for both the subject Purusha and the object Prakriti. It is a temporary mistake. Thank God, temporary mistake. If it would be a swabhavika, natural or intrinsic, then you cannot remove it. Suffering continues. Freedom is never achieved. Hence the Samyoga is incidental, naimittika, it is caused. Sri Ramakrishna illustrates this with an example. We read that the other day. He said, Papa demerits and Punyam merits are like birds on a tree. They are not part of the tree. As even they come to sit on the tree, even so they fly away. The Nyaya or logic uses this example to prove a Samyoga, this type of example. They say, when you touch the tree on which a bird is sitting, you touch the bird also. There is a relation between the bird and the tree and your hand. This relation between your hand and the bird is called Samyogaja Sambandha, a relation due to connections, even though it is clear that the bird is not in your hand. The Yoga Sutras and Vedanta say that such Samyoga is caused by ignorance or avidya. Hence the removal of avidya is the way. That is being explained in the next aphorism. Tad abhavat sangyoga abhavaha hanam tadrishehe kaivalyam. This is the central teaching of the Yoga Sutras. This is a very important aphorism. Tad abhavat sangyoga abhava. Samyoga and abhava. Hanam tadrishehe kaivalyam. Tad abhavat means there being absence of that ignorance. Samyoga bhava, there is absence of junction or connection. Hanam, which is the thing to be avoided. Tad, that is kaivalyam, the independence, drishehe, of the seer. Now we proceed to learn about yoga and its meaning, which is freedom. We read that yoga means chitta vritti nirodha. We have read that already in the beginning, the second aphorism. Yoga has chitta vritti nirodha. Means yoga means completely stopping the modifications in the mind. That was the second aphorism in this book. Chitta vrittis are about what? Let us look back to the gist of our understanding of whatever we have learned so far. Each vritti is the smallest basic unit of thought. When a thought arises, we know that thought. Suppose we have a vritti called apple vritti. The apple thought is known. Now analyze this phenomenon. There are three items in this knowledge. The vritti is there, the apple is there, and then the knower of the apple vritti there. The knower is the subject, I know. The vritti is the instrument to know the object, and the apple is the object. And the knower Purusa is connected with the apple through the vritti. How? We generally do not know the apple directly, we know the apple vritti. When we know an apple, the apple is separate from me. So what is there in me? Then mind, the vritti, takes the form of that apple, and I know that apple vritti. So this vritti is the samyoga, which we compare to a hand glove. The vritti is a samyoga between the subject drik and the object drishya. Drik drishyayoho samyoga. This connection is between the subject and the object, the seer and the seen. How to break this samyoga or connection? The answer is through disconnection. How to break a connection? Through disconnection. How to do that? We have to use viveka jnanam. So far we have learned. What is viveka jnanam? The awareness that the seer and the seen, the subject and the object, are eternally separate. They can never be joined. And if you think they are joined through the hand glove, apple vritti. The apple vritti or the experience of the apple is a compound. Apple is there, vritti is there. When I am not able to see this difference between the Purusa, the subject, and the Prakriti, the object, then I am samsari, a jiva in bondage of this world. I am a worldly person, and my experiences are called bhogaha. Bhoga means both, as we have seen, sukha bhoga, enjoyment, and dukkha bhoga, suffering. Right? But if I have the viveka, that I and the world are ultimately separate, then and then alone, let us transact with the world without fear. Then this knowledge is the cause of my freedom. This same knowledge is the cause of my freedom. This freedom is called apavarga, bhoga apavargartha. Samyoga is meant for both, for our suffering and for our liberation. And this freedom is called samyoga abhavaha. Tad abhavat samyoga abhavaha. Samyoga abhava means yoga, means breaking of connection in this aphorism. Breaking of connection, disconnection. Yoga means disconnection, and that you get here. Even in the Gita, Sri Krishna says that buddhi samyoga viyoga. Samyoga buddhi, when the maya vritti has been connected, suppose, to the apple, when you break that samyoga, that is called viyoga. Yoga uchyate, Krishna says that is called yoga in the Gita. So at the same time, if this samyoga would not have happened, suppose there would be no samyoga because it is a mistake. But if this mistake would not have happened, then we will not have the need and also the way to get freedom. Right? The seer is called the Swami or the controller. Experience or knowledge happens because of the samyoga connection between this controller seer and the controlled scene or object. This knowledge is of two kinds. Number one, the mistaken knowledge that creates the bhoga or enjoyment and suffering. And number two, the right knowledge, viveka, that brings about apavarga or liberation from this connection. Again, the connection or samyoga produces knowledge of the seen objects. This knowledge of the seen objects or the objects is called bhogaha, enjoyment. The knowledge can be derived and enjoyed by seeing, smelling, feeling, hearing, etc., etc. Our combination of more than one or all of them. Seeing is done by using the sense organs connected with the physical eyes. Hearing is done by the sense organs connected with the physical ears. And similarly, feeling with the skin, smelling with the nose, and so on. At the same time, samyoga facilitates inquiry because it connects the knower with the act of knowing or the intellect which produces knowledge. That is the act of knowing, instrument of knowledge. Otherwise, the knower is never available for knowing. Hence, samyoga is also the cause of our freedom. Okay, good. But we will have a more critical question here. In the earlier aphorism, you said that ignorance is the cause of samyoga. See the trick here. This aphorism said that tasya hetuhu avidya. The cause of this samyoga is ignorance. Then how can this ignorance produce knowledge? How can the ignorance produce knowledge? How can darkness produce light? A very seriously tricky question. Indeed. Because knowledge and ignorance are mutually contradictory in nature. Paraspara viruddha svabhavaha. They are mutually contradictory in nature, svabhava. Mutually contradictory means one will eliminate another. They will never stay together. Like light and darkness, they will never stay together. Well, then how does one get the knowledge of the self or Purusha? Through the samyoga, which is nothing but the product of ignorance. It's a very tricky question, but the answer is very easy. We have already discussed. Because we are reading the Yoga Sutras. In this, the idea of liberation is in knowing the difference between the subject and the object, disconnection. Right? Now we have learned that ignorance is the cause of the unrealistic connection between the seer and the seen. And ignorance is the cause of our bondage. Right? We have learned that. Then logically speaking, knowledge should be the cause of liberation, apavarga. Ignorance is cause of bondage, therefore knowledge is cause of liberation. And then your doubt that how ignorance would generate knowledge would be acceptable as right. No, your doubt is not right. In the Yoga Sutras or even in Vedanta also, number one, ignorance is the cause of the samyoga or the knot But the Samyoga is not all ignorance. Did I say it right? Samyoga is not all ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of Samyoga, but the Samyoga is not all ignorance. Do you get the point? Ignorance is the cause of the mixture of Prakriti, which is matter, and Purusha Atman, which is knowledge absolute. Samyoga therefore has Atman knowledge in it. Hence it cannot be all ignorance. Right? It is a mixture of knowledge and matter, suppose ignorance. And they are not really connected. There was hand glove. And number two, it is not knowledge which is the direct cause of freedom from bondage. This we have to understand. Because knowledge does something, and that is that it eliminates the cause of bondage, which is ignorance. It eliminates ignorance. It does not produce knowledge. Knowledge eliminates ignorance. It does not produce knowledge. Well, once again, let us look at the same doubt for more clarification. Where from do you get this knowledge in Samyoga in ignorance? We should remember that we have told that the Samyoga happens due to ignorance because it connects two non-contactable or contactless things, Asparsha Yoga. What are those contactless things? One is the Atman and the other are the objects, Prakriti. They are eternally separate. That is what is called duality. Hence in every Samyoga the Atman is present and consciousness or knowledge is the nature of Atman. Hence there is knowledge in every Samyoga. Hence every mix-up is a product of our ignorance because it is caused by ignorance or a mistake. But it has Atman in it, which is knowledge. That is why, and thank God, luckily, it contains the prospect of liberation. You go to sleep, which is an ignorance of the outer world, but each sleep has the prospect of its end and also the prospect of coming back to the awareness of the world. Thank God. Clear? Then let us study the words in the aphorism separately to get the meaning, real meaning out of it. Tad abhavat samyoga abhava hanam tadrishehe kaivalyam. This is the central aphorism or teaching in this book. Tad means that avidya or ignorance. Tad abhavat. Abhavat means being absent. That ignorance being absent. Samyoga abhavaha. Abhava, there is absence of samyoga junction. When the ignorance is absent or is destroyed, then this connection fails. By ignorance we connected two things. We thought they are one. But when that ignorance goes, what happens? That connection is broken. They are separate. So, in simple words, samyoga abhava means disconnection. Abhava means absence. Hence, absence of connection means disconnection of the existing connection. Okay? When this disconnection is achieved, then what happened? You have done the nirodha of the chitta vritti. You have done the nirodha of the chitta vritti. You have completely eliminated the vrittis that are connected to the world and its objects. This is called hanam, complete destruction of the conjunction or connection. That is called finally drishehe of the seer, kaivalyam, independence of the seer. This is called liberation of the seer, of the individual, of the Purusha, of the Jiva, of Vishwa, whatever you may call it. In the scriptures, this event is poetically expressed as the end of our delusion and the birth of the pure Atman, pure innocence. The ever-free consciousness is always there, but for the sake of making sense in our effort for liberation, it is designed as a process. It is like a seed decaying into a new seedling. Prakriti is not sad about its own end, because it is meant for the freedom of the Purusa, Apavarga. And it has achieved its purpose. It is happy. It has got job satisfaction. Hanam is a very strong word, meaning annihilation, complete extinction. This strong word is used because the destruction of ignorance is ultimate. It is forever. This proves that the idea of rebirth or redeath is not an endless journey of the soul. It is a temporary journey which ends in liberation after removing the mistake. Liberation from what? Liberation from this journey. Clear? The ignorance is destroyed. That means the samyoga is destroyed. That means the state of disconnection is achieved. The ignorance that the samyoga or connection is true is destroyed by knowledge. By what type of knowledge? The knowledge that the connection is not true but a mistake. Then what happens? Even as the realized person continues to live in this world, even so he or she sees this connection, samyoga, as it is. She or he would always see it as it is, but will know that it is a mistake and never think that it is true. This is called the disconnection or samyoga abhava in practice. For a practicing yogi, this vision of disconnection is his or her sadhana, spiritual practice. And for the realized soul or free yogi, it is his or her swabhava, nature. It becomes his nature. That means for the realized yogi, this disconnection continues as the background music. Even when she or he lives in this world and transacts with all worldly objects as others would do. Like such yogis will walk having their feet on the ground. There is something special. These yogis, realized souls, they will walk on having their feet on the ground like we do. But there is a big difference. These yogis will eat food through their mouth like other human beings. They would speak in human language using their mouth and tongue. They know many languages this way. Would sleep as happily as a primitive human being would do. But the difference will be that they will not be subject to anger, greed, delusion, jealousy, hatred, hypocrisy, selfish desire, etc. The yogi can also be called a sthita prajna, that is the word used in the Gita. This yogi's intellect is established in the conviction and realization of this disconnection, even though the connection is still there for others. Hence all his or her works or behavior in this world are in no way done with ignorance about the reality of the self or the ignorance that the world has permanent value. The realized yogi does not have any purpose of their own. They live in the society for the good of many. Shankaracharya says, Vasantaval lokahitam charantam. They go on living their life for the good of many, for the happiness of many, like a good season. This question as to what purpose should the realized souls have that they should wish to live in this life even after realization? That is a big question. We have heard the sweet, pleasing and comforting argument given by the spiritual authorities that they live to help others. Well, the idea to help others is also a desire. Isn't it like that? All desires are born out of ignorance about the reality. That is what you say, the scriptures say. Hence, such desires are contradictory to one's liberation. How can they live in this world? The answer is that yes, it is contradictory in a general sense. But there are such exceptions among desires which are not products of selfish goals. That is called altruistic or unselfish concern. That is what Sri Ramakrishna has said. He said there are some things which are exceptions to the general rules. Sri Krishna's masterly exposition on this subject in the Gita, that is the 3rd chapter, sets all questions to rest. Well, that is a very long discussion there in the Karma Yoga in the 3rd chapter of the Gita. And this is not a place to look into the Gita teachings here. Still, I would quote a few of the teachings for our clarification, because this is the authority speaking directly to us. Sri Krishna said, that is Gita 3rd chapter, verse number 17, the realized souls living in this world delights in the self alone, and is content and satisfied in the self. For such persons, there is no compulsory duty to discharge. The next verse says, they have no object to gain here in this world by action, nor do they lose anything by not doing any action. Then Sri Krishna goes to say, look at me. In all the 3 worlds, there is nothing that is binding on me as a duty. Neither is there anything that I have to gain, nor anything that I cannot gain. Still, I am always engaged in work. He uses a wonderful word, atandritaha, without sleep, sleeplessly, ever awake. He has further said that he has to do so to help his own creation. To help, that is the goal such saints, realized souls have in their mind when they continue to live in this world.